Oh, hello there. Yes, well, it's cold again. Never mind, never mind, never mind. Spring is sprung, I guess. Yes. Anyway, the ongoing reform thing has been, well, not really reformed, has it? No. Did have to smile at this particular thing.
I'm Rupert Lowe. I am the MP for Reform for Great Yarmouth. I was elected on July the 4th, which is Independence Day, and at the end of the day now it's time for everybody to stand up and be counted.
Yes. Oh, the irony in so many ways. Lee Anderson very much used to get cross with that bloke that used to hang around outside Parliament, the anti-Brexiteer. His name escapes me now, but, the one that was forever blasting out music and stuff like that. He used to get very, very cross. Steve Gray, I think the guy's name was. Anyway, yeah, because he was being interrupted. But you see, of course, it's, well, basically your Tory MPs, your reform types, they're interchangeable. After all, he used to be one, didn't he? Yes, indeed, like some of the others. Anyway, yeah, it's allowed to be disrespectful because it's funny. It's funny when Lee does it. Yes, okay, yeah, he would very much enjoy practical jokes, but you mustn't play them on him. Again, all these little things are big giveaways as to the innate personalities of the people involved. Has been a still an ongoing joy to watch the whole thing crumble away. I mean, the bad news, of course, is that all of the mass deportation fans will rally around Rupert Lowe, who's become a mass deportation fan. Ah, yes. I think, with all those people that say, well, if you don't like it here, you should go, or, if you don't like it, if you don't like migrants, you want migrants, you should have them in your own house. I think all those people who say that they're massively in favour of mass deportations should massively have to physically go out and take part in them. Okay, I want to see people like Rupert Lowe and Connor Tomlinson and Carl Benjamin having to go out and remove crying children from their homes. I think that's only fair. Anyway, that's just me. Today's main thrust is on the ongoing non-thing that is VAT on schools. Because if you recall last year, we were told earnestly by everybody in the mainstream media and the non-mainstream media and all the people that say they're the non-mainstream mainstream media, even though they are the mainstream media, that there was going to be, well, basically the death of civilization itself because they were going to put VAT on schools. And this would mean that, well, millions of schools would close and millions of children would flood into the British education system, causing it to collapse towards the centre of the earth, creating a small black hole which would eventually swallow all reality, or something similar. And, well, this cropped up in The Guardian yesterday. No exodus to state sector after VAT added to private schools, says English councils. Yes, unfortunately, the actual data appears to be slightly at odds with what people wanted to happen. Oh dear, most say they have seen no impact on implications for Year 7 places, despite warnings against the policy. Yes, but inevitably with our glorious media, they've decided, well, basically, apart from Guardian, not to report that because, that can't be a thing. So we had the intriguing notion of people deciding to just simply keep this whole thing going. So the Times led with this, not led with it, but it was on their front page. Private school teachers take second jobs as VAT on fees bites. The introduction of the tax has led to some schools to freeze pay for teachers and support staff, and some are struggling to make ends meet, which is one of those kind of not really a story in itself because it manages to get so many different things wrong. First of all, this isn't since like September, okay? Teachers in private schools aren't suddenly poor since September. Lots and lots of teachers in private schools, because it's cheaper to employ them when they're not qualified teachers, aren't qualified teachers, and consequently they are amongst the worst paid in the sector. Because if you don't have a nice union to back you up, them evil unions, RMT, Mick Lynch, oh dear, train drivers, yeah, them, then your pay tends to be quite poor, particularly if you are not unionised, which tends to hit these people. And for years they've put up with basically being squeezed out because, drum roll, if you run a business that makes a profit as its primary motive, then you're going to make a profit, and you're going to want to make a profit by not paying your staff very well because that's built into the system. Sorry if I understand capitalism, but there you go. Yes, capitalism has no innate structure to make people be decent to their employees. It doesn't operate on that level. Just for the economics fans out there that think that magically I don't know what I'm talking about. Anyway, yeah, so basically it isn't a story. But you notice the way that this has become attached now to the VAT story. Yeah? Yeah, schools aren't being closed, teachers aren't being paid less, or I imagine that in future some of them will be, but they can then go into the state sector, can't they? Can't they? Well, no, a lot of them won't. I actually trained with quite a few people who wanted to be teachers, but definitely not in the state sector. And good luck to them. If they want to stay in a sector that treats them badly, that's up to them. But this isn't a VAT on schools story. I'm sorry, Times, no matter how hard you try it. And just to wrap things together with various people who are members of Reform, God, he's such a appalling politician. There was a real car crash interview with him with Camilla Termini on GB News at the weekend. Richard Tice, who just can't answer. He appears not to realise what a likely question is. It's a bit like being a weatherman and going on and having an interview and being surprised that someone is questioning you about the weather. Oh, I didn't know you were going to ask me questions about the weather. It's almost on that level. Anyway, leaving that aside, he stood up and is very proud of this, okay? Again, keeping this story going, the Secretary of State refused to say how many SEND children are expected to leave independent sector due to VAT on fees and the extra cost to taxpayers. The truth is they have no idea, yet there is a crisis of SEND places in the state sector. Yes, and again, that's another person who really doesn't know anything about what they're talking about, because after all, number one, it is Richard Tice, and number two, well, no, it's still Richard Tice, and they just want there to be this crisis because they can then blame it on the Labour Party. But the crisis in SEND, unfortunately, has its roots very enormously directly, totally, with the reforms that Michael Gove brought in 2010, which lots of people said, do you know what? That's going to make a bad situation a lot worse. And oddly, that made a bad situation a lot worse. Now, we don't know how many people are going to be affected by potentially some schools in the independent sector, not exactly private but independent, because you have state schools and you have the independent sector, which may well take state pupils, and you have some mixed. It's more complex, okay, than Richard knows, if nothing else. Anyway, leaving that aside, right, okay? But we don't really know how many of these kids might therefore have to come back into, in inverted commas, the state sector. But there's a good chance that basically all SEND kids that are at independent or private schools will effectively stay there. And if they come back into the state sector, then that money won't go anywhere. And you can't tell how many it is because these various independent and otherwise schools are run as businesses, and they're not going to tell you. So this isn't a government issue, Richard, and it certainly isn't realistically a VAT on schools issue as such. But that's just me, knowing things. Anyway, yeah. Do have a glorious day. I don't know, make the use of the last of the weather. I still just think it's cold. I will be happier when we actually do officially hit spring. I've noticed as I've got older that the weather makes me cantankerous. Not with Richard Tice, I'm just cantankerous with him because he's an appalling politician with no morals whatsoever. He is a man, after all, who's claimed once again that he had to move to Dubai along with his girlfriend because he couldn't afford the VAT on schools. I don't think that's very plausible. I think he just likes living under Sharia law. Ooh, do have a lovely day.